All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of The Market Close. It is Tuesday, October 1st, 3:46 p.m. We have Nike earnings after the bell. So in about 15 minutes, we will take a look at Nike earnings. We will not be having Technical Tuesday today. That'll actually happen on Thursday. So we'll be doing all the technicals with Jason on Thursday instead of today. To start off today, obviously, we've got to talk about the attacks from Iran on Israel. Today has been just an incredible day to start off October. To give some context, September ended yesterday. And in the end of September, we obviously had a really good month and really good Q3. We are starting Q4 today. And as a result of starting Q4 today, we begin the first day of October. And what's crazy about starting the first day of October is that I don't think any of us expected the volatility that we got this morning. And we really didn't have that volatility in the pre-market. The strikes from the port workers we'll talk about in a second, that wasn't really that volatile. In fact, I found out some data about how, how I was talking about towards the end of the stream on the market open. Oh, I think the market kind of already priced in the workers and the port strike. I think there's a reason why, and we'll talk about that in a second. But we had a pretty good pre-market. Nothing was too crazy. And then boom, you get oil prices go up 2.9%. At one point, they were up 5%. So they were up a little bit more than what they are right now. They were down 4% in the morning. They were down 4% in the morning. Today, they are now up 3%. Again, at one point, they were 5%. And outside of the oil prices, the reason the oil prices went up is because of the attacks on Israel. So I just want to show one video. It's like a 7-second video. This is one of the videos that has been going around in terms of the severity of the attack. So far, Israel has come out and they've said, hey, we have had no real civilian casualties based on the attacks so far. Obviously, they're still probably investigating if those attacks or to what extent the casualties will be imposed based on the missiles that were launched today. But so far, they haven't had any aggressive ones. Now, in terms of what the missiles look like, yeah, it was pretty bad. Here's a message I got sent by someone who is actually on the ground in Israel. And this is a video that they took right here. Let me pull this up. Let's see if I can play it right here. Okay, it's hard to play something from my messages, so let me just pull up another video instead. The attacks were pretty. Yeah, here it is. Here's the video right here. It was pretty bad. It was definitely not a good thing at all today. So here's what we were looking at. The Iron Dome was not affect, obviously, Israel as they landed. Now, the question is how many of them landed in civilian areas versus on empty land? So far, Israel is saying there hasn't been that many casualties. But, those attacks, those missiles have obviously been bad. Now, another thing that happened that a lot of people haven't been keeping context of, and I'm not going to show I don't want to show the picture of this because I'm going to zoom in on the picture. But these are two people that were going around at the Jaffa train station. I'm probably saying the name wrong. I'm sorry for that. And they shot 6 people. Not going to show the actual people lying on the floor dead. You can Google that yourself and find it. But that was actually something that has killed more people so far officially from the death toll that we have coming from Israel versus the missiles themselves. Again, we don't have official numbers on that. We will get those official numbers probably over the next coming days. But that attack has officially happened. Now, as soon as that attack happened, we really got notice of it around 9:45. That's when the headlines came out. And basically by 10:45-ish, call it 11 a.m., market hit a bottom. Now we're at 568 right now. We hit 566, and that was the low on the market. Bitcoin right here all the way down from 64,000 to 61,798. S&P is kind of recovering. Now we're probably going to end down 1% on the day, but down 1% to start October, not the worst thing in the world to me. Robinhood right here down 4.4%. I did end up buying the dip at $22.40. I tweeted about it. So I bought 100 shares at $22.40. I bought that dip, and if we keep going lower, then I will buy more. But I do think 22.30 is good support, and based on looking at it with the chart in comparison to the S&P, it made a lot of sense to at least dive in at 22.40. I know the market's not down 4% today, but one of the stocks that I care about is down 4%. And usually when a stock's down 4%, that you have a big position in, you might as well add to it a little bit. So that's what I did with Robinhood. That's the only dip I really bought today. Palantir, pretty resilient, 36.57, down about 1.69% on the day, but not down as aggressively as some of these other stocks. NVIDIA continuing to get hit, down 3.55%. They were at 115. Now they're at 117. I think that North Carolina quartz facility not being recovered might have something to do with the semis, but I think more of it has to do with China and obviously the general Middle Eastern tensions that are going on. S&P again at 568. Then you got the NASDAQ right here down about 1.4% on the day. I know 1.4% down on the NASDAQ and 1% on the S&P is a decent amount given what we've seen over the past couple of weeks, but it doesn't really feel as aggressive. It doesn't really feel like a buy the dip day, which is my question to the chat right now. Did you buy the dip? Nike earnings in about 8 minutes or in about 9 minutes. We'll get Nike earnings in about 9 minutes. Did you buy the dip? That is my question. Because it wasn't one of those days where it feels like, we should be super excited to buy the dip just because like there wasn't that big of a dip. But on the contrary, to give the other perspective, it kind of does feel like, hey, maybe buying the dip is not the worst thing in the world today because we haven't had that many, especially on individual stocks, we haven't had that many down days by 4 to 5%. And October is going to have really good CPI. Next week, non-farm payrolls are going to be in line with expectations. Oil is already coming back down after being up 5% this morning. Oil being down is very good. We talked about that on the market open. And it doesn't seem so far that the attacks today are going to lead to an all-out regional war. Now, Israel's going to respond. There is no doubt about it. IDF already came out and they said, hey, we're going to respond. The question is going to be, is the response going to be so aggressive that Iran attacks back and then they just keep going back and forth? Or is Iran going to just let them attack and like as long as no civilians are hit, Iran's going to take it on the chin just like they did 3 months ago? Because again, a lot of this is just political posturing and showing that like you have strength even when you don't really have strength. And a lot of it's just going back and forth, but not actually causing real damage to each other. So if that's the case, then I think the market's going to overlook it. And it's going to be another one of those headlines where it's a war dip, and a war dip usually gets bought. We got Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, all those stocks are up today. But if not, we're going to end up seeing, how the market ultimately reacts to if this escalates. But so far, the market's acting like this is not going to escalate. And if the market was acting like this was going to escalate, they would, again, price it in, and we would see some further volatility. That's not exactly what we're seeing right now. Now, another thing that's really important on those port strikes, again, we got Nike earnings on the market close in 7 minutes. Apparently, the port workers are now asking for 61.5% on their increased wages. I looked at a couple articles from yesterday. Yesterday, the demands were 77%. And yesterday, they were offered a 50% increase in wages. So not only has it come down from 77%, if my sources aren't wrong, which I looked at a lot of articles yesterday, and the headline number was not 61%, it was 77. It feels like they've already come down from 77 to 61, 61, and they're not going to 50, but they are still at 61, which is coming down. So in the morning, at the end of the show, when I said, hey, I feel like the market in the pre-market was not down on the port strike news because the market had priced it in, I think the market kind of realized this negotiation is going to happen pretty quickly because everyone wants to reach a deal and it's not going to be something that lasts for months. Because if it is lasting for months, the market would price in some further downside volatility. That's not what's happening. The only reason we went down 1% on the S&P today is because of that Iran headline. I mean, that came out at 9:45, and by 10:45, we were down, I think, a little bit more than 1%, about 1.5%. But I don't think the port strikes are doing it. Now it's just a question of seeing over the next couple of weeks, are the port strikes and are the Iran attacks going to lead to something much bigger? Here is the actual leader of the union talking a little bit more about the strikes today.
Are you worried that this strike...
They have the capital to settle this thing.
Are you worried that this strike is going to hurt the everyday American, the farmers that need to reach the export market? They're telling me that they're going to hurt through all of this.
Now you start to realize who the longshoremen are, right?
Nobody cares.
People never gave a about us until now, when they finally realized that the chain is being broke now. Cars won't come in. Food won't come in. Clothing won't come in. You know how many people depend on our jobs? Half the world. And it's time for them and time for Washington to put so much pressure on them to take care of us, because we took care of them. And we're here 135 years and brought them where they are today, and they don't want to share.
You worried that this...
Okay, so I think he's obviously serious, but I do think he is ready for negotiation. I found out this guy, the guy you were just seeing on camera, he makes $900,000 a year because he's the leader of the union, the president of the union. And the average port worker makes $147,000 a year with $35,000 in annual medical benefits. They rejected the 50% pay raise. I don't think it's just about the pay raise. I think they want, because further in that clip, he talks about guarantees for technology not automating their jobs. I don't even know exactly what that means. I don't know if this guy's been studying about humanoid robotics and he wants a guarantee that robots are not going to replace him, which I don't think that's going to even happen in the next 5 years anyway. But like, there's something that they're upset about more than just the wages. And it looks like they want to get the deal done. The question is going to be, when do they get the deal done? And, if that deal happens in time for the markets to not get super scared about what's going on going into the election. So no, they don't make 50 to 70,000. I thought they made 50 to 70,000 as well. They make $147,000 a year. That is, I also thought it was 50 to 70. Nope, it's 100. It's basically 150 grand. So they want more, which is all right. They want more. Now the question is going to be, when does this end up leading to some type of resolution? I do not think the markets are down today, S&P about 568, because of the port workers. I think it's strictly because of Iran. And if Iran doesn't escalate with the tensions with Israel, I think the market kind of shrugs it off. If it does, then I think that's what takes us down, not the port workers. But that's what they have right now. Okay, cool. So that's what we have for the S&P 500 right here. Again, remember, he is the president of the union. That's why he makes $900K. Usually when you're in a leadership position, you tend to make more money than being an employee of an organization. But because he is the president, he's the leader. Remember I told you guys that story about the nonprofit that manages the debate team that I was on? That guy made like $500K, the president of the nonprofit of the National Speech and Debate Association. I was shocked when I was 15 and I was like, why is this guy making $500K? And average teachers are making $50K. Well, when you get higher up there in the nonprofit world and you're a leader, you tend to make some more money. Palantir right here, 36.53. We got about a minute 30-second left. Rocket Lab at 9.23, down about 5%. Tesla right here, 257, down about 1.5% on the day. We are going to see Nike earnings in 2 minutes. I think Nike comes out straight at 4 p.m. I could be a little wrong. It could be 4:05. But you got Nike right here at 1% on the day. So Nike is still down 17% year to date. Okay. Nike's down 17% year to date. And Nike is heavily exposed to China, which is why I think they're getting some momentum over the past couple of days. Speaking of China, by the way, have you looked at China? China oil and what's the other one? And defense stocks have been up today. Look at FXI, up 4% on the day. Look at Alibaba, up 6% on the day. Like, China is mooning. And then you got XLE, the energy ETF, that's up today about 2%. That's because oil prices went up. I don't know how sustainable that is. Oxy, for example, Oxy was up a little bit more than 3.35%, not giving away too many of its gains, but it was up a little bit more than that. Oil prices have started to come down. And you got China doing well. And then obviously defense stocks, Lockheed Martin right here, 52-week high, all-time high, actually up 3.57%. So Nike Street wants $11.52 billion in revenue, and they want 52 cents of EPS. I think the China stuff is bullish for them. I don't know how this is going to factor into their guidance, but I am curious to see with a new CEO change and with Bill Ackman buying 3 million shares of Nike 2 months ago after selling, 500,000 shares of Google to finance that. We're going to see if that bet pays off and Nike ends up getting some momentum after the bell. All right, here we go. First day of October is officially done for trading in the stock market. Stock market's now closed. All right, so we have ended out the day. We are now going to see what ends up happening with Nike and to see what else plays out for the rest of the day. So we'll go back to Nike in a second. I think we'll get the results just to see how the day ended. Alibaba up 6.2% on the day. S&P 500 down about 1% on the day. It was a pretty rough day to only be down 1%, not the craziest thing in the world. Robinhood right here down about 4.65% on the day. 22.33. Palantir 36.49 down about 1.91% on the day. Tesla down 1.38%. QQQ down 1.39%. Meta up 0.7%. Meta hit all-time highs today, which was insane. Meta was like rockets were being launched, missiles were being launched, and Meta was at 482. It was kind of ridiculous. But Meta right here, green on the day. There is another firm that came out, I'm forgetting the name, but they initiated a price target of Meta to 782. So you're getting a lot of the street start to get bullish. I really hope Zucks does a stock split like 10-1 or even 5-1. I think that would be exciting. I don't think he's going to do it, but that would be fun to see if they could split their stock. Neo right here up 5% on the day. JD up 7% on the day. Baidu up 4% on the day. And then we had Alibaba up about 7% on the day. In terms of the Mag 7, we had Microsoft down 2%, Apple down 3%. There was a Barclays article that came out that said, hey, Apple's iPhone 16 demand is going to be slow because they are cutting production. I had multiple people reach out to me today and said, no, when they go to the Apple store, it's packed. So I think we're kind of struggling with the equity research and the anecdotal evidence around what demand looks like. Meta right here up on the day. Google up a little bit on the day. Amazon down about 0.64% of the day. The port strikes might be affecting the inventories for Amazon. We'll see how much of an impact over the next couple of weeks that has. NVIDIA down 3.6% on the day, and then Tesla down 1.38% on the day as well. All right, Nike. What do we have on Nike? So a little bit of movement after hours. I do think we get the results pretty soon. I don't think this is a 4:30 type of stock. Let me know in the chat if you own Nike as well, if you're playing this one. Let's see. Again, analysts want 52 cents of EPS, which is negative 21% year over year. They want 11.65 billion in revenue, which is negative 10% year over year. I think Bill Ackman bought it for a reason. So we're going to see something happen in the context of Nike. 415. Okay, we got a 415. 415. All right. So what did you guys buy the dip today? Let me see in the comments. Did anyone buy the dip? Did anyone, or did you sell anything as well? Did you sell anything by the dip? Let's see what you guys have. Amid the 140K is with overtime. Yes, that is correct. The 140K is with overtime. Correct. 140K, 140,000 is with overtime. Regardless, they're asking for a 70% raise on top of that 140K even if you include overtime. So you can tell for an employer how that can become unsustainable for them to pay. But they did offer 50% off the 140K with overtime. I guess without overtime, you're looking at 85 to 90K. The question simply becomes then, how much are employers willing to continue to pay? We got some people bought Palantir, Hims, Robinhood, Baba, Hood, Micron, bought the dip, $12,000 worth of options spread across AMD, Hood, Palantir, Tesla, and Microsoft. What else? Sold Walmart and Google. Interesting. All right, Nike's down a little bit after. Oh, we still have 415 though. No, yeah, so we don't have to worry about Nike too much. Bought some TQQQ. Interesting. TQQQ right here as it closes in on all-time highs. It was down 4% of the day. The only thing that was up is short QQQ. By the way, you know who was the happiest person on the planet today? It was not a mother who just gave birth to a child. It was not someone that just found out they won the lottery. It was Meet freaking Kevin. I mean, I think the happiest person on planet Earth was Mr. Meet Kevin because he finally got. Is Nike down already? Nike's down 1%, dude. This isn't earnings if it's at 415. I think we still have to wait. So any moves after hours right now is probably not a big deal, or not like contingent on the results. I think Meet Kevin was the happiest person in the world today because he finally got a bear thesis to pop up. Now the question is going to be, how bearish was this event that happened today with Iran? I don't know if it's that bearish, but we're going to see kind of how that ultimately plays out. Bought Workday. Interesting. Workday is an interesting one. Workday is actually a very, very interesting. Rocket Lab just shot up 8% at market close. Are you guys okay? Every time you guys put a comment like that, you guys got to remember, dude, there are glitches in the stock market. Like, yes, it shot up to 995 and now it's right back down to normal. You got to not believe those things at all. Like, those are not real until it's actually sustained for like more than 15 seconds. Those are likely glitches in a variety of different ways. I'm assuming it's a glitch. Maybe someone bought a ton and it jumped right up to 995, but a lot of times it ends up just being a glitch that happens randomly in the stock. At least that's, usually my experience with those random moves after hours. Do you own PayPal? No, I don't know PayPal. It was longer than 15 seconds. What? It was 30 seconds. It was 30 seconds to be there. I don't understand buying Palantir right now. I love the company, but at these prices, what can you expect for a CAGR? I feel you. I think it's a really hard kind of valuation math argument to make. I do think Palantir right here at 36.50 was very resilient today. If you missed the news this morning, Peter Thiel sold about 4.18 million shares yesterday. I talked a lot about insider selling on Daily Palantir on yesterday's episode. But in general, I think the stock is incredibly resilient. I mean, the fact that Teal dumped $700 million of stock and the stock has barely budged is pretty incredible. Now, in terms of growth, we got to get to 30-40% soon. And I think we'll get to 30% next quarter, hopefully 40% by Q3 of 2025 for the valuation to make a lot more sense and to have any chance of like expanding the multiple. I do think we need to get those growth rates, but I think we will. Like, I'm pretty confident we're going to get higher growth rates because the evidence is in front of us in terms of how they're growing. So I think it's an inevitability for that growth to come. Right now, Palantir's priced for like 35% growth for the next decade and like 40% operating margin. So like I do think there's a premium attached to the name, and there will be more premiums attached to the name if they can keep growth. They can actually get 40-50% growth because people are just going to be excited to be part of their journey. But we got to get to those levels. We got to have those NVIDIA quarters, and hopefully we get them into 2025. All right, we got 8 minutes until Nike. We're still waiting for Nike. Let me see some other headlines that we had today before we get into Nike as well. So confirming, the president of the Port Workers Union said they want a 61.5% pay increase. Again, that number yesterday when I looked at it was 77%. So I feel like that number already has gone down, which is why the market's getting ready to price in some level of negotiation. Stocks that hit 52-week highs today: Home Depot, Raytheon, Alibaba, Lockheed Martin, Lowe's, Nextera, Live Nation, Facebook, Meta, eBay, Fortinet, Kinder Morgan, Phillips, L3 Harris, a lot of defense contractors in there. Carvana. Oh, by the way, did you guys look at Carvana? Carvana is just insane, dude. I looked at their year-to-date chart. So even with all the volatility today, we still had companies that were able to hit those 52-week highs, which just shows you how resilient this broader market is. And that's the reason I bought the dip. I bought the dip today. Maybe it's not the best price I bought the dip at, but I bought the dip because I was like, goodness gracious, these many headlines came out this morning and down 1%. Like, that wasn't really that big of a decline. It wasn't as aggressive as a crash. Maybe that's coming up in the next couple of weeks, but I think we have a lot of good data coming up as well. And so I felt the market was pretty damn resilient. Carvana right here up 244% year to date. NVIDIA up 140% year to date. So you've got used cars outperforming GPUs with none of the semiconductor volatility. You don't have to worry about Taiwan and anything. You could have just gone long on used cars and slept pretty much the whole year and had a great year. So Carvana, incredible year for Carvana. And obviously their surprise profitability quarter, I think in Q1 or Q4 of 2023, that's what really set them off. And they ended up having a pretty strong year. We got Nike in about 5 minutes. And so we'll see what happens with Nike. What's going on with SoFi? I think SoFi was down on the day a little bit. SoFi, it's up after hours. It was down 3%. Yeah, SoFi did announce their earnings is October 29th. So October 29th, I think we will see what SoFi has been cooking up. I am hoping they raise. We know they're going to triple beat. There's 3 things in life that are confirmed: death, taxes, and SoFi triple beating on earnings. SoFi is going to triple beat. The problem is the 4th thing in life that is confirmed is that SoFi is going to triple beat and then the stock's going to tank. And so we need to get rid of that 4th thing and make sure a triple beat with increased guidance, hopefully on EPS and revenue estimates for Q4, based on the fact that we're likely going to get another 50 bips of rate cuts, is going to take the stock hopefully to a higher level. And if that can't do it, then that means the shorts are fully in control. And I don't know what it's going to take to get the shorts to be out of control. But hopefully that Q4 guidance is enough to get that to hopefully happen. Carvana's up 4,000% in the past 18 months. Life-changing if you bought it down there. Yeah, the stock was like $2-3 back then. It was, 2022, it got obliterated. And then it came up a bit higher. I bought Hood today, 2240, bought 100 shares of Hood. What do you think about Airbnb? I really like Airbnb, the company. And look, the financials aren't bad either. I just think same problem with Airbnb is with a lot of other stocks. There's not a real interesting narrative with the company. First of all, from a personal experience, I stopped using it as much as I used to before because hotels actually are just cheaper, quite frankly. And like, it is what it is. Second of all, there's not an interesting narrative with Airbnb. Like, there really isn't. It's like travel, destination, all that. I don't know what the narrative is for Airbnb to get people super excited. I think the VCs made a lot of money off Airbnb, like the Y Combinators of the world. I think public shareholders have not really seen that many benefits. But I still think Airbnb is an incredible company. I think if you buy it now and you wake up in a decade, like, you're not going to be disappointed. I just don't know if it's the best bang for your buck in the short term. given some of the other opportunities that exist. Yeah, let me do the poll on Nike, pump or dump on Nike. Let's see what you guys are thinking. I want to say pump, dude. I want to say things are lining up for a pump on Nike. Bill Ackman's in, new CEO, and China. Like, I feel like that's a logical argument to say pump, but I don't know. I don't know. I guess we are going to find out. What are we looking at in the context of Nike? About 4 minutes, and then we'll see what ends up happening for Nike. Thomas says, instead of buying 100 shares, why not just sell a put at the price you were going to buy at? Yeah, but that's fair, and I do that all the time. I actually just want more shares of Hood, to be honest. Like, I think Q4 can be really good for them, so I just want more shares. But number two, I mean, when you sell a put, the premiums weren't like that amazing. It was like $30 today. It wasn't to risk to try to get $30 versus just get the shares in case that this dip doesn't last for the rest of the week. It just wasn't worth it necessarily, at least for today. But I'm a big fan of that. I'm a big fan of just selling a put and like letting it get to your price if you want to get it, and then being paid to buy the shares as well. 62% say dump, 38% say pump. Interesting. Okay. So that is so most people are saying dump versus pump. I don't know, dude. Nike, I don't think the number is going to be amazing. What is going to be good is the macro landscape for Nike, which might help them, but not sure if it's going to help them completely. You think it's a muted move? I mean, I could see it being flat, but I do think, their average move over the past couple of quarters has been like 15%. So I think there's going to be something volatile that happens on Nike, whether it's up or down. I think we get something today, and we'll see what it looks like. Tesla deliveries are tomorrow, I believe, in the morning, right? Tesla's always in the morning, the deliveries. Oh, Pinduoduo, incredible day. They were up 7% as well. Pinduoduo basically recovered everything that it lost 2 months ago when it had like that 40% decline. Not 40%, it was like 32% decline. It was a pretty bad decline, but they're back to normal. I think Tesla's in the morning, and we'll get deliveries. Is it in the morning? It's usually in the morning, right? It's in the morning. Yeah, 8:30 in the morning. And I think 450 minimum. If it's below 450, it's going to be bad. If it's like 470, I think it's going to be really good. So one of those is what we'll see. Yeah, I think 8:30, you're correct. 8:30 Eastern is usually what happens. Thoughts on Nike or thoughts on China? Same thoughts on China I've always had. I'm personally not investing in it, but I don't think it's crazy to go long on China, given that we talked in the morning. They haven't even really unveiled the stimulus that they're going to do. Like, these are just like baby steps of stimulus. They are ready to really unload stimulus, which means, I mean, I don't see how that's bearish. Chinese investors are ready to start putting money back in. Brokerages are doing 24-hour services to handle the demand. Like, I think it's bullish. I do think a lot of the move has happened. I don't know if there's like another, 30, 40% in the short term left, but a decent amount of the move for a lot of those stocks have happened. So it's just a question of assuming if it can continue to happen. All right, we got a minute left on Nike earnings, and then we'll see what we're looking at. We got $89.13. Again, the street wants $11.52 billion in revenue. Or sorry, 11.65, and they want 52 cents of EPS for the earnings per share. And based on those numbers, we got a green candle. We're green. So far, we're green. We're still green. Up 2%. Nike is up 2% so far. Nike's up. Up 2.5. Let's see if it can crack that 93, 94 level at 91. So initial results are pretty damn good. At least that's what the street is saying. Now 92.4. Nike dropped. I'm looking at Nike go up. Nike's up right now. Yeah, look at this green candle, dude. Nike's there. 92.90 it hit. Right now at 91.04. Question is if it can keep that momentum. Let's see. Let me get the numbers. Nike numbers. 70 cents. Wow. They beat EPS by 17 cents. They missed on revenue by 50 million. 11.6 versus 11.65. Missed on revenue, beat on EPS. That means sales probably slowed down, but they became more operationally efficient, aka margins, to make sure the net income beat against expectations. Also, they might have done some buybacks, which that could have also been a reason. Oh, now we're red. Now we're slightly red. By the way, we are entering into corporate blackout season, which means none of the corporations can really talk about anything, and they can't buy back their stock. So for the next couple of weeks until earnings, you're not going to see any stock prices go up based on like Apple buying their own stock. Whatever they have to buy, they've already done. And so we're not going to see any more buybacks over the next couple of weeks. All right, now we're back to green, 3%. So we went up 3%, down 0.4%. Now we're hovering above 2%. I think it's kind of trying to make up its mind right now if it wants to be green or not. But revenue did miss, EPS did beat. Let's see if we can get some coverage on Nike. Let's pull this up, and then we'll get through a bunch of other headlines that we have today. Very curious what Nike's going to say. All right, so I think some coverage. Let's pull this up. Okay, here we go. Let's see. I think we got it.
It's going to happen in 45 minutes, an hour's time.
Okay, hold on. We've got those Nike results that are ready, and Sarah Eisen is ready to bring them to us. Sarah?
Hi, good to see you, John. So big beat on earnings. They do usually beat, but revenues, importantly, are in line. 11.6 billion. Expectation was around 11.64. That's a 10% decline from a year ago. Go beneath the surface, and then I'm looking at North American revenues, always important. Pretty much in line, 4.83 billion versus the 4.81. That's an 11% decline from a year ago. Looks like the China numbers were a little better. Greater China, 1.67 billion versus the 1.62. Gross margin also a nice improvement, and improved from where analysts were looking for it at 45.4% versus the 44.4%. I do want to highlight a comment in the release, because it's not from John Donahoe, who is the current CEO. It's from Matt Friend, who's the EVP and CFO. One of the questions today was, would John be on the conference call? It's not clear. I don't have an answer, but perhaps indicative of the fact that he's not mentioned in the release or quoted in the release. He may not be. Matt Friend says Nike's first quarter results largely met our expectations. A comeback at this scale takes time, but we see early wins, according to the CFO, from momentum in key sports to accelerating our pace of newness and innovation. Continuing that the track that John Donahoe originally laid out to recover and turn around is on track. It does look, I'm just looking for any other information here, because a few more questions around Nike. For instance, are they going to have an investor day? And there's an answer here in this release. They had an investor day scheduled for the third week of November, and it looks like the company is going to be postponing the investor day. It says that in the release. That was one of the key questions, whether that would be a catalyst, which makes total sense because they've got a new CEO coming in 2 weeks, Elliott Hill taking the reins. So a little bit early to have an investor day, about a month later. They also note the transition that is going to be happening on the 14th. And looks like that's all the information from now. I think one of the key questions, and apropos of your conversation you were just happening, is what happens with guidance, which we don't get to the call. Are they going to scrap it? Are they going to revise it lower, set the table for the new CEO? Those are some of the bigger questions ahead. But right now, Nike shares little changed. And just for some context, guys, they're up a little more than 9% since the new CEO announcement, but still down almost 20% year to date and have underperformed.
All right.
Nike's going down now. Weird. So they're not doing the investor day and they don't have guidance. Yeah, now it's down about 1%. That is weird. I mean, they beat in China, which is good, but to not have the investor day and not have a reason for why you're postponing it, or at least I didn't hear a reason, and to not give guidance, looks like people who picked a dump on the poll might end up being right. Now, it's not really a dump, down 1.6%, but it wasn't really a pump being up 2%, right? So, Amit, are you covering the debate tonight? Guys, should we cover the debate? Should we stream the debate? Should we stream, what's his name? What's the guy's name? JD versus Waltz. Should we stream it? Or is it too political to stream? Is it too political to get into? Dude, I don't want to give my political, but I don't care about politics, dude. If I would analyze it, the thing is, I did debate for a living. I coach debate. I can analyze a debate. The problem is when you analyze a debate and you disagree with someone's opinion on how you think the debate is going, then they hate you because you disagree with their political affiliation. So it's always so dicey to do that type of stuff. But I don't know. It's up to you guys if we actually want to do it. 89.13. So we're down about 2%, 2.18%. So Nike actually taking a little bit of a tumble. Nike's taking a little bit of a tumble. Jason's not going to do TA today. Jason will be here on Thursday. We'll do TA with Jason on Thursday. So we're not going to be able to do it today. We're going to do it on Thursday. All right. So Nike is still down. The debate is important for the markets. Is it actually that important for the markets? Is the VP debate that important for the market? I mean, there's definitely an impact on the markets, but is it as important? I don't know. I mean, I guess we'll see tonight if it's actually that important. All right. So here are the Nike numbers. First quarter revenues, $11.6 billion, down 10%. Nike direct revenues were $4.7 billion. Wholesale revenue, $6.4 billion. Gross margin increased to 45.4%. That's good news. That's not bad. Diluted earnings per share was 70 cents per quarter, down about 26%. CEO or executive VP and CFO says Nike's first quarter results largely met our expectations. A comeback at this scale takes time, but we see early wins from momentum in key sports to accelerating our pace of newness and innovation. Our teams are energized as Elliott Hill returns to lead Nike's next stage of growth. Why isn't Elliott Hill giving a quote on the press release? Why do you have a new CEO, but he's not giving a quote on the press release? That's interesting. You would think this earnings would be a chance to introduce himself. I wonder if he's going to talk on the call. Maybe he doesn't talk on the call. Maybe he comes on the next one. But I would have loved to hear from Elliott Hill and get a little bit of an understanding of who this guy is. Selling and administrative expenses decreased 2% to $4 billion. Tax rate 19.6%. Net income $1.1 billion, down about 28%. Inventories were down 5%, which is not horrible. Cash and cash equivalents were $10.3 billion. Did they buy back any shares? They bought back $1.2 billion, and they gave dividends of $558 million. So you got dividends of $558 million, and then $1.2 billion of share purchases, about 14.8 million shares. All right, so that's what you got on Nike. That's what you got on Nike. What if JD drops Palantir's name during the debate? That would be oh, I got to show you guys something about Palantir. I don't think I'm going to stream the debate, dude. I just I don't know, dude. I want to stay away from politics, and it's just not that interesting either. So I don't know. We'll see. Maybe it's a game time decision, but probably not going to stream the debate. I also think it's not going to be that exciting of a debate to watch. Look at what Forbes put on their thumbnail. They said how America's richest billionaires made nearly $1 trillion in a year, and you got Karp in the middle. I mean, like that, dude, I saw this right before I went live, and I was just like, do we think a year ago Alex freaking Karp of Palantir would be on a Forbes thumbnail on YouTube? Like, most people don't know who Alex Karp is at the end of the day. Alex Karp is indeed the ace. So I like it, dude. I really like it. I think this is one of those things where it's like on the ground type of due diligence where you're seeing other people recognize Palantir, in this case, Forbes, and Forbes is a very big media presence. And the fact that they want to put Palantir in the middle, or the CEO of Palantir in the middle, it just goes to show the media compounding of attention is legit. And it's actually happening for Palantir. And even that thumbnail alone is kind of showing that. Also, Dave Rubin, he has this channel on YouTube. He posts a lot of clips of stuff that's going on in culture. He posted a clip of Karp on, I think, Bill Maher. It was one of these clips, and that thing did 500,000 views. And so you're just getting all these different media sources that are picking up on this, probably because they're starting to see a lot more momentum in Palantir. I'll try to find that screenshot, but I sent that screenshot to someone, and we are seeing Palantir get a little bit more excitement. Bitcoin's down below 61,000. Oh boy, where's Bitcoin? Is it actually below 61? Wow, Bitcoin's tanking. There you go. 4.4% down. Amazing. Incredible. Beautiful. Now, look, I kind of think this is I don't think this is a horrible buy the dip on Bitcoin, just given how much strength it had, but I think the Iran headlines took them out, and Middle Eastern headlines always takes out Bitcoin. And then there you go, down about 4.7% on the day, because Bitcoin reacts violently to Middle Eastern headlines. Silver sold my MicroStrategy today. I don't hate that. I don't hate that. MicroStrategy, where was it today? What was it? Down what? Down 3%. It was actually not down as much as I thought it would be. I mean, yeah, I mean, look, if you had a nice 120, 130 average, not a bad sell. I think October is going to be a little volatile. I mean, if we're starting off October with port strikes and pseudo World War III stuff, then we've probably got some volatility. Now, as I say that, one thing to remember is that we're going to get good CPI data, and we're probably going to get good jobs data, and then we're probably going to get a strong start to Q3 earnings in the next 2 weeks. So having said all of the volatility that will exist in October before the election, there are a lot of other things that will happen that are relatively good for the market. And so maybe today was one of those days where it was about the dip. Maybe today was one of those days where it's the start of something a little bit more volatile. Or maybe it's one of those days that's just a random day where you get some volatility. But that doesn't transcend into a ton more volatility. 568 on the S&P, down about 0.9% of the day. Short QQQ was up about 5%. Rocket Lab up about 0.33% after hours. Palantir down 2% on the day, 36.46, 36.48 after hours. Then Bitcoin still down about 4% right here on the day. Bitcoin is part of its weekly pattern. That's all. Really? This is the weekly pattern for it to be down in this? Actually, no, you're not wrong. I think I was reading. I mean, 58, I think, is the actual completion of its weekly pattern if we get to 58. So that actually is normal. That's a good point. But I do feel like if the Iran stuff didn't come out today, Bitcoin would have been fine. That thing really, I mean, dude, I remember I was listening back to the market open. I was listening to myself read it because one of you guys posted in the comment. And as I was reading it, I wasn't making as big of a deal of it as like it was. Like I was reading, I was like, oh, Iran will send a ballistic missile. And then I turned to my other computer and I was like, oh, that's not good. Like that was my reaction. And then finally, when we actually started looking at what's happening, I was like, oh, that's like actually not good at all. But markets so far have seemed to absorb it without too much pain, at least today. All right, so let's see what else can we get. Why doesn't Palantir defense stock get love? So a couple things to take into account on this. Number one, I think Palantir is definitely playing a role with Israel. I don't think Israel was able to find the people they found in Lebanon or do anything with the pagers and walkie-talkies without Palantir. I think a lot of that was because of Palantir's intelligence. However, the market doesn't think of it like that. First of all, Palantir's up 120% year to date. So already, if you're asking for more gains, it's going to be a little tough from the market. Number two, Lockheed Martin and Raytheon, it's very obvious when the market thinks we're about to go to war, they're going to get tens of billions of dollars to make missiles and weapons and guns and all this other stuff that they create. And then historically, that's how it's happened. So it's very easy for the broader market to kind of make an argument around why those stocks should go up versus for Palantir, it's not as simple of a reason for that to happen. Number three is that we don't fully know the implications of what's going on with Israel and Iran and if that means more revenue for Palantir. I think it means some more revenue for Palantir. I don't know if it's like substantially more revenues for Palantir, but if we end up in a war, then Lockheed Martin and Raytheon, like the market knows exactly how to kind of price those out. And that gives them some more momentum. Whereas Palantir, we don't even know how much Israel or Ukraine is paying them right now, right? Because Palantir doesn't break it up through segments, which I wish they did. It'd be nice to see how much they get in healthcare and defense, et cetera. But so far, yep. Which is why I think Palantir didn't get any love today. But Palantir got a lot of love this year, being up 120%. Okay, let's get an update on NVIDIA from Bernstein and see what they have to say. NVIDIA has been down about 5% over the past couple of days. Let's get their perspective, and then we'll go from there.
Now, to talk about the chip space more broadly, top chip analyst, Bernstein, Stacy Rasgon. Welcome back. It's nice to see you. So I know it's too soon for you to talk about this company specifically, but at least it raises the issue of companies that are out there that want a piece of this AI pie. How should we be thinking about these newcomers relative to the heavyweights like NVIDIA?
Yeah. The company he's talking about, by the way, is Cerebras, which filed to IPO. I think they did like 150 million in revenue over the past 6 months. People are saying that they are a legit competitor to NVIDIA. We'll talk more about them. I'm still not finished going through their S1, but I'll go through that over the next couple of days. But they have filed to IPO, and this is another chip company coming onto the market that will try to compete with NVIDIA.
So there's a number of areas of competition for NVIDIA, which makes sense. It's an enormous potential opportunity, and all the dollars right now are flowing to NVIDIA. And you've got other merchant suppliers like AMD or even Intel You have hyperscalers doing their own products, and then you have startups as well, right? And I think for a lot of the startups, look, it's difficult. They don't have scale. They don't have ecosystem. And if their pitch is, we have a chip that's better than NVIDIA, I think that's hard because, with every generation, NVIDIA has a chip that's better than NVIDIA, and they have the software and all the ecosystem support that goes with it. So I'm not going to comment on Cerebras, but they're doing some other things. I mean, clearly, they're gonna try their best at this point. But in general, so far it's been a winner take all. And I always, as I've said this before, it seems like it's NVIDIA's game to lose, like more broadly.
Well, I mean, it's winner take most, right? I mean, it's not like Broadcom hasn't done well.
No.
The issue, though, is that, as it's done better, its multiple's gone up, hasn't it? So it's not as cheap as it was viewed to be before.
That's true. And so to be honest, if you're talking about like the real competition, I actually think it is more on that hyperscaler side. The cloud vendors doing their own chips, and this is an area clearly where Broadcom really shines. They're doing a lot of the ASIC work for the key players like Google and Meta and some others. And it's a very big business for Broadcom. They said $12 billion in total AI revenues this year. I bet $8 billion of that 12 is probably custom AI accelerators and ASICs for those large guys. And look, I actually do think that is real, and it will get bigger. And I wouldn't be surprised if the penetration of ASICs relative to the broader TAM gets bigger and bigger over time. It's kind of apples and oranges in some sense. It's more, those stuff is more used for the internal workloads of the hyperscalers versus workloads where you need programmability or anything that's customer facing or enterprise. So they are kind of two different markets. But yeah, I mean, this is a market that's already sizable and it's getting bigger. But to be fair, I think that the overall opportunity, the TAM is big enough for both of them to benefit. I don't think it's a matter of one necessarily winning over the other. The market's sizable enough where I think both of them can win. And I like NVIDIA and I like Broadcom. We like both stocks.
I mean, but that kind of squeezes out AMD, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, this is one of AMD's like broader issues. I mean, in the near term, and by the way, they have an AI event coming up in a week or two, and we'll get some new product announcements and we'll see. And they suggested they'll do $4.5 billion or more than $4.5 billion this year. I think expectations are probably for 5+. And I don't want to knock them too badly, because it was zero a year ago. I've said this before. So on an absolute basis, ramping up, $5 billion of a product from zero in a year is nothing to sneeze at. In the grand scheme of the dollars that are getting spent, though, it's not very big. NVIDIA will do well over $100 billion in revenue this year. Again, Broadcom's going to do double digits in total AI revenues. So it's not that big, but it's good. But long term, I mean, you bring up a good point. Like, I understand the need for a second source, but most of AMD's exposure right now is at these larger hyperscalers. And is that second source? Does it need to be the AMD or is it Broadcom? I think that's an open question at this point. Yeah.
So Cerebras, to give some context, last year they did revenue of 787 million, if I'm not wrong. Sorry, 78 million, up 220% from a year earlier. The company narrowed its net loss to 127 in 2023 compared to 177 in 2022. Through the first 6 months of 2024, Cerebras said it lost 66 million from sales of 136 million. So I wonder what the valuation of that is going to look like. They lost 66 million. And they did revenue of 136 million. Now, that revenue growth in the first 6 months is already basically double of what they did in the entire year of 2023. However, they're not profitable yet. And, I guess the market's going to be thinking, why should we buy this over NVIDIA that did 61 billion in 2023? And that's going to do close to 120 billion this year in 2024. So it was interesting for me to see that they actually filed to IPO because I didn't know there was enough liquidity for tech companies to IPO. But then again, they're not just a tech company, they're a chips company, and there is plenty of demand for chip companies. The question is, do they have the numbers that people care about, or that they're at least used to when it comes from the chip companies? Nike right here down about 3.4%. And the numbers that NVIDIA has been putting up have just been incredible, right? So I don't know if they're going to be able to match those levels. NVIDIA right here down about 3.6%. As well for the day. The semis in general today, again, took a hit. It was a tough day for the semis. You got Dell down 4%. Dell's at 113. See, this is what I'm saying about the Palantir insider selling. Michael Dell sold at 122. People are left holding the bag today at 113. Peter Thiel sells at 36. Palantir at one point today was at 37.45, right? It's a totally different dynamic in terms of how this insider selling is working out. But you are seeing a lot of insiders take profits, and because those insiders are taking profits, stocks will reflect that. ARM was down 5% of the day. Taiwan Semi down about 1%. Qualcomm down 2.5%. Broadcom down 3%. ASML down 1.3%. Intel down 3.28%. AMD down 2.6%. And then NVIDIA down about 3.6% on the day as well. So semis had a relatively red day. Let me check Berkshire. Berkshire, were they green on the day? Berkshire was also down. So value took a little bit of a hit. Bitcoin is $398 away from going below 60,000, which would be just disgusting. Like just absolutely disgusting. But it looks like that might happen. And that's going to take a ton of Bitcoin proxies with it. Where's Robinhood? Oh, we didn't even get to talk about the Robinhood news. Robinhood 2230. I didn't even get to talk about it in the morning because we had so much stuff happen. But let me just go through it real quick. Robinhood did have a press release today. That was actually pretty big news, dude. It's like adding to the bullish thesis even more. They are now allowing crypto transfers in Europe, which is actually a really, really big deal. So Robinhood Crypto has launched crypto transfers for customers in Europe, which is one of the most requested features in the region. Crypto transfers enable customers to deposit and withdraw more than 20 cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, USD Coin, and others, giving them greater flexibility and control over their digital assets. It allows them to have self-custody, allows them to buy and sell 35 different cryptocurrencies, allows them to do staking and receive a certain APY, get 15% rewards on holding USDC with no limits. Basically, a lot of good stuff for people that care about the crypto ecosystem. And I believe I got a screenshot from someone where the most amount you can make in terms of rewards is about 10,000 euros, which is pretty incredible in terms of like a match on the crypto you deposit, which is not bad at all to try to be able to get 10,000 euros on top of the crypto. It's kind of like that 1% deposit match that exists for like gold, for like regular money going to your brokerage. That's what they're doing for crypto. So that was actually a really big deal today. The VP and GM of Robinhood Crypto said, with the launch of crypto transfers in Europe, we're making self-custody and entering DeFi simpler and more accessible for our customers. Support for deposits and withdrawals gives customers more control over their crypto while ensuring they have the same safe, low cost, and reliable experience they expect from Robinhood. For a limited time, Robinhood Crypto is also offering customers in Europe a 1% match on all crypto deposits, which is paid out in the same cryptocurrency they deposit, subject to a cap. So if you put in 10,000 euros worth of Bitcoin, you're going to get 10,000 euros worth of Bitcoin as a match. It's not too bad. Or sorry, 1% of that 10,000 with a cap of 10,000 euros, which again is not horrible. Just another innovative way to get more money and deposits onto the platform as well. So that's the Robinhood news we had this morning, but we didn't get to talk about it in the morning, given everything that happened. Amit, can you give us your best Chinese accent? Okay, no, I'm not doing that. Second of all, I can barely give you an Indian accent. I can barely talk like my dad, who has a really good Indian. I can't do it, dude. Like I don't know if you would call my accent an American accent, but I talk like an American. I don't even know what that means, but like, I don't know, dude. It's very hard for me to have accents from my hometown. When I try to do it, I sound like an idiot, dude. Like I don't sound like Apu from SpongeBob, or not SpongeBob. Did I say? Oh my god, I'm about to get roasted for that. It's Simpsons. I know it's Simpsons. I know they both start with an S. Okay, they both start with an S. So they both start with an S. That's how I got confused there. But yeah, I suck at accents, bro. I'm so bad. I'm like legit horrible when it comes to accents. Damn, I said SpongeBob. Could you imagine if Apu was on SpongeBob? Simpsons was like. They were pretty edgy with the comedy. I couldn't imagine SpongeBob ever be that edgy the way Simpsons were. But yeah, I suck at accents. I'm like, that's why I can never be a real comedian, because comedians I feel like have to be able to do accents. Like if you can't do accents as a comedian, you're like you don't have part of your arsenal in comedy. Like part of comedy is like being able to do voices and stuff. Dave Chappelle's amazing at it. Kevin Hart's amazing at it. I am not the best. Chris was doing them. Of course, Chris was doing them yesterday. Chris loves to get in trouble, dude. Chris loves to just say shit and get in trouble. That's what he loves to do. All right, let's get one macro take from someone who thinks China's reacceleration could be bad for the U.S. Let's get that perspective, and then we'll keep going from there. This is from Morgan Stanley, a.k.a. the guy who looks like Steve, in my opinion.
Tape, this new quarter for stocks with the economy, earnings, the election, geopolitics, general thoughts on where we sit here in the markets.
I think when we last spoke, we were a little concerned about September. We were really concerned about the fact that the market had pivoted where good news was good news, but bad news was bad news. And what was the Fed really going to do? And I think that was weighing on markets going into Fed week. I think the Fed giving that 50 basis point cut really kind of jolted into the economy, or into the markets, I should say, kind of a more stronger risk appetite. In our view, we think the economy is doing well, but we think a lot of this kind of euphoria is already probably priced into the market.
You think all the good stuff is priced in? Because, I mean, the Fed has just started cutting rates.
Right.
So some would suggest, look, just keep it simple, right? Fed's cutting, economy's good. Powell himself reiterated that yesterday to the degree at which he says, hey, we're going to go smaller than 50 because we can.
No, I mean, look,
what's wrong with that?
I think if you look at Q3 now that we're through Q3, what's performed really well? Tech's actually not performed very well, but things like utilities, REITs, financials, all up north of 10%, in some cases up almost 20%,
That's right.
So I think a lot of that euphoria about rates coming down has immediately been responding into those areas of the market. I think looking forward as to what we see, we're entering the blackout period, so buybacks are starting to go away.
Mm-hmm.
We're starting to look at earnings expectations. Earnings now are priced to be about 2 times what historically they have been. And so in our minds, you're right, the market is very resilient. I'm surprised, honestly, with how well it's doing today after what's happened in the Middle East. But that being said, we think at some point, price is going to matter. We see earnings probably priced for perfection and a potential for a pullback.
Isn't there still a huge catch up for all of these other parts of the market? I mean, just because the equal weight S&P outperformed the market cap weight in the third quarter doesn't mean it's done.
No, and I think that's probably the area where we're probably most constructive, right? So I think S&P 500 was up about 4 or 5%
relative
on market,
8%,
8 to 8.5%, right? So I think there are opportunities in that 473, as well as the fact that I think expectations for those types of companies are actually much more reduced than the Mag 7 and the names that have really been driving this market.
Let me ask you this: why aren't you just net? You know what? The game's changed a little bit. The economy's more resilient than most thought it would be at this point in time. Fed's cutting. They're just beginning. The trend on that is continuing to go lower. China's stimulus there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, central banks are cutting all over the place,
right?
Or stimulating all over the place.
Well, and this is, I think, the difference between a question of what they want to do and what they need to do, right? So I remember when we were talking about the fact that economic data was getting weaker and the fact that the Fed
marginally.
Well, I mean, look at the labor market, right?
Look at the
labor
revisions in GDP. I mean, come on, look at the upward revisions in GDP.
Look at the labor market, right? And look at the fact that one of the key drivers with regards to why the economy is doing well and why inflation's going down is what oil prices and labor costs. Labor costs have been relatively going down and oil prices have been stable, right? We're in a situation right now where we have this issue with regards to what's going on in the ports, potentially with regards to revisions with regards to labor. So I think labor is a key thing that we want to be focusing in on. The fact that China is accelerating could actually be a negative for the U.S. economy in the sense that if they're starting to draw more demand with regards to oil, granted Saudi Arabia is raising production, that could be an impact with regards to oil prices. So if you get oil prices going higher, you get labor being an issue with regards to labor costs going higher, that's going to affect margins, that's going to affect earnings. And
I don't love that take, by the way.
That could be an issue if prices are too high.
I mean, there's a lot of ifs, could be's, and whatevers that people have been talking about for the last 18 months.
And that's why I don't like that take. There's a lot of ifs and could be's. I mean, his argument is like, okay, so if China expands, they're going to use more fuel. If they use more fuel, oil prices are going to go up because there's going to be more demand for fuel. And that's going to be bad for the U.S. economy because there's going to be less margin expansion in the United States, given oil prices will go higher. And I'm like, that is an argument you can make. Nike right here down about 3% after hours. I do think that with the Saudis pumping and in general, with oil prices falling the way they've fallen because we have so much supply coming onto the market, that's not going to be the biggest issue. So I wouldn't get bearish from China expanding and using more fuel as kind of like your bear case for the U.S. economy, given how much it's going to help United States companies because so many of them are exposed to China. But I guess that is one argument that you can make at the end of the day. We saw Nike earnings. Nike earnings came out at the 415 mark. They beat on EPS by 17 cents. They missed on revenue by about 50 million. They didn't give guidance for those that are just joining. That's why Nike's down 3%. Not really a big move. I mean, the last couple of quarters have been 7 to 15% in terms of implied volatility. This one was, this one was just not that big of a reaction. We were up 3%. Now we're down 3%. I guess we'll see on the call what they say, but nothing too dramatic. Bitcoin right here. This is the one that's ruining everything because it chooses to continue to go down. And it just keeps going down. You know, one thing I've always thought about when it comes to Bitcoin is like, I wonder if Bitcoin would ever survive in a world where we didn't do quantitative easing, right? Where we didn't have the money printer creating liquidity that would allow the ability for Bitcoin to get momentum. The problem is, I wonder if tech stocks would also do good in that world if Bitcoin collapsed. And if I had to pick, I hope everyone in the chat would pick the same. Like if there was a gun to your head and you had to pick Bitcoin or tech stocks, I hope people would pick tech stocks. I mean, I'm sure there's some people that are, they would pick Bitcoin, but like at least you have real cash flows from Microsoft. Whereas Bitcoin, you have nothing. Like you just have absolutely nothing other than this idea. And again, I am bullish on Bitcoin. I like Bitcoin. I think it makes a lot of sense as a hedge against money printing and the Fed being egregious with the M2 supply, all that stuff. But I think the people that are like Bitcoin's everything, it is so contingent around money supply. It is contingent around rates, and it's contingent around inflation. It is not an independent asset on its own that is able to move without those three things. And that's why we haven't had the crazy run up. And by the way, the only reason it's up this year, like a lot, is because of Larry Fink. I mean, BlackRock has bought over $20 billion of Bitcoin this year. And Michael Saylor, he's bought what, like 7 billion of Bitcoin this year? Or not 7 billion. I think like 4.2 billion. Without those two, I don't even know if Bitcoin's at that $60,000 range. So again, I think we got a pump at the end of the year. I don't know if it's the 100,000 people are looking for. I think it's possible if we keep getting cuts and China keeps stimulating. But we got to get through October now as well. We also have to get through the election and see what happens as a result with that. I think you'd find more often than not that Bitcoin moves more or less with tech stocks. Yeah, I agree. It's just if I had to own one, I would pick tech stocks. Just like I could sleep better at night knowing that I own like Amazon over Bitcoin. By the way, I think next year, the 2 positions I want to build out, the 3 Mag 7 positions I want to build out, that's a good question for the chat. What is a Mag 7 position you want to get build out in 2025 that you haven't already built out? My top 3 in order are Tesla, Amazon, Meta. So Tesla at the top, Amazon second, and then Meta. Those would be the 3 that I would love to build out in order. We got Palantir. Imagine Palantir gets into the Mag 7 next year because it just won't go down anymore. Like the stock just doesn't go down. They're like, you know what? Just put in the Mag 7. That's it. But I would love to build out those 3. That would be a nice thing to do next year. I need more Google. All right, I'm beneficial, says Google. But like my point is I would love to own any of those 3 over Bitcoin. Just like, and again, that's not bearish Bitcoin. That's just like, what can you sleep better at night knowing that you own? It's like, yeah, I'd rather own Amazon, Tesla, or Meta versus just Bitcoin. Josh says NVIDIA. AI Money says Meta. Joe says Palantir. Got a lot of Palantirs. Palantir and Rocket Lab. Palo Alto Networks, interesting. So we got that. Amazon and Meta. No one's saying Microsoft. I haven't seen a single Microsoft yet. Interesting. No one's saying Microsoft. I think Microsoft will do well, but again, the same problem with a lot of the other stocks. I don't know what the beautiful narrative is on Microsoft. And don't tell me it's Copilot, because it's not Copilot. So like, I don't know. What's the crazy narrative? Cash flows are amazing. Buybacks, dividends, all that stuff. Robinhood's down 1% after hours. Of course, why not? As Bitcoin collapses, Robinhood collapses. But I think Amazon, Meta, and Tesla just have such better, amazing narratives associated with them. What's going on with retailers today? How do they do today? Walmart, let's see. Walmart was up a little bit today. Home Depot up a little bit today. Target down today. Interesting. Walmart and Home Depot got a bid. Target didn't. I don't know. That's actually kind of weird. If we saw a little bit of rotation into retailers but didn't get Target to to benefit. Oh, by the way, Apple is preparing to announce a new updated entry-level iPhone SE next year. I don't even know what that means. I don't know why they need to release another entry-level iPhone. Like, we already have so many of those, but apparently there's a new iPhone coming out next year. And OpenAI has introduced some new developer features today. A public beta of their real-time API for low-latency multimodal experiences with voice and audio input and output to the chat completions of their general GPT API. So, good news for OpenAI. Relatively flat news for Apple with the new iPhone. Oh, also Citi, one thing on Apple, they also cut their iPhone targets for the next couple months. So not only did Barclays cut their iPhone unit forecast, Citi also cut their iPhone unit forecast. However, Citi still has a price target of 255, even though they cut their targets on it. Robinhood's down 1%. Someone said a bearish article came out about Robinhood. Okay, that's actually not horrible, to be honest. I'm always interested in seeing what the bear case are. For anyone that's afraid about the interest rate cuts hurting Robinhood's net interest income, oh wow, Fast Company did a piece on Robinhood. Huh? Look at that. I just Googled it and I found out. Notice I said Google. There's Google's moat. Wow, look at that. Fast Company. I didn't know this. They did a piece on. This is not an old one, right? No, is this the old one? They did one a while ago. I think this is new. I'm pretty sure this is, 9/27. This is new. Okay, so this came out 4 days ago. But what was I going to say? The interest income on Robinhood, there's the article in the chat. The interest income on Robinhood will go down 40 million for every 25 bips. That doesn't matter because they have 20 billion sitting in cash. I think it's like 22 billion waiting to be deployed. So if you're making less than a 5% APY on your money, the question then becomes, do you want to put that into the markets? Even if you don't put it into the markets, Robinhood is still making the same 0.89% spread that they make by giving you the APY. The APY is not contingent on the amount they make from giving you the APY on the platform as a commission for giving you the APY. But you do have a lot of people, given September was all-time highs for the market, that probably saw those rate cuts and consequently decided, hey, I want to take some of my money, put it into the markets. That leads to more transaction revenues. And given Robinhood's doing about $1 billion in TTM for revenues in transactions, it doesn't take a lot to make up the 80 million that they lose from net interest income for every 25 bips. So I don't think it's that big of a deal. And I actually think they're gonna crush September. And that's why they've gotten so many price. They got a $27 price target from Deutsche Bank, 27 price target from Piper Sandler, $23 price target from Citi. Like, they're just starting to get a lot more upgrades because the street is realizing what that organic growth is going to look like. Google right here at 166. IWM today fell about 1.3%. So you have IWM go down today. Snowflake Snowflake was down 4% on the day. Oh, compared to Snowflake, Palantir held up like a champ, only going down 2%. But Snowflake down about 4% here on the day. Would that iPhone be good for the India market? Well, that's the iPhone. Apple already has multiple iPhone SEs. That can go into the Indian markets today for like as same of a price as the Android phones that are being sold in India as maybe not exactly as cheap, but pretty cheap. So I don't know why they're making a new entry-level iPhone. They already have those. They have multiple versions of those. But for some reason, I guess it's not like fully deployed in India, or at least they're not marketing it as hard as they could. But yeah, I don't think they need a brand new version. Where's Nike after hours? Nike 86.24. Nike down 3.24%. What a day, dude. It's a hell of a day. Hell of a day to start off October 1st. Bayer says you really just spit the price targets from who gave them all off the top of the dome. Impressive. Probably made them up. Okay, number one, I did not make them up. Number two, I was thinking about this yesterday. 2024 for me has literally been a year of put your eggs in a couple baskets and watch those baskets like your damn life depends on it. And those baskets this year have been Palantir and Robinhood for me. So Whether it comes to price targets or how much cash they have, it's like, those are just things you know. But there's only a couple baskets, right? If you had like 15 baskets, it's hard to know everything. But if you have a couple baskets, dude, you know the analyst that's upgrading or downgrading your stock. You know the banks that are bullish or bearish. You know the year-over-year growth rates. You know the freaking monthly growth rates. You know the amount of money they're getting from net interest income. Like, you know everything when you have a couple of baskets. But that's okay, because sometimes you got to solidify before you diversify. And when you're solidifying, you got to watch those baskets very, very carefully. And it's also an easier way to invest, dude. Like, it's just such an easier way to invest if you have a couple things to care about. You just got to be right on those couple things. And, you know, it could end up working out decently. Bitcoin right here, recovering a little bit. Bitcoin's still down. It was at 60,175. Now it's at 60,820. So you got a nice little 700-point reversal in the past 20 minutes, but it is still down. It's still down on the day. It sounds like you made up the price targets. Oh boy. Any input on Transmedics Group? I don't have an opinion on this stock. I know the stock has done very well. I really have not done any research on this company. They're up 88% year to date. Growth estimates have been good. I know they're growing I think they're growing triple digits or something, or double digits, like high double digits. This is a winner. This is a good one. And, 76 at the beginning of the year, now at 144. I just don't know enough about them fundamentally, but I've heard about them a ton. Not enough to know if it's a good buy. Now, quite frankly, any stock that's up 88% year to date, it's hard to be like it's an amazing buy. It could probably go higher, like with the market going higher. But the question becomes, is the risk reward worth it? This is why I think everyone's looking for that dip. This is why today I was looking for a dip on Robinhood to be like, all right, is it worth it to get back in, right? And to get at a price that I think is decent. Same thing with Palantir. Everyone's waiting for that dip on Palantir, but we haven't really been getting it. So it's one of those things where if you want to buy right now, you have to look at an industry or a stock that's just been hammered and really hasn't had any momentum this whole year. But a lot of stocks have. I mean, when I saw Carvana up 240% year to date, I was just like, what? Like, it really has been a stock picker's market this year. And some stocks have done incredibly, incredibly well. All right. I think that's it. Do we have any other headlines? Anything else that we want to look at? We'll see tomorrow what the implications are from this Iran attack and how Israel is going to respond, and if that response is going to lead to anything further. We'll also get an update on the ports next week, or not next week, literally tomorrow, and we'll see if they get into any level of a negotiation. Let's do one more update on the ports just because I want to get a little bit more coverage on that, and then we will officially end it out for today. And then we'll take a look at this. Okay, here it is. Port strikes that happened this morning at 12 a.m. And again, they're looking for a 61.5% increase in their wages.
Of companies involved in shipping also getting hit this morning. This is dock workers go on strike at ports from the east coast of the Gulf of Mexico. Frank Holland has been covering the story for us. He joins us from the Port of Elizabeth in New Jersey. Frank.
Hey, good morning, David. New development in this story as well when it comes to the port strike. The ILA has told us the number when it comes to a wage increase they are seeking. That number is 61.5%. The president of the ILA speaking exclusively to CNBC earlier today about the negotiations. And I just want to confirm with you, around 61% is what you're looking for.
I didn't stutter. I said around 61.5.
Around 61.5.
All right.
Thank you very much, Mr. Degg. You have a good day.
You do. You have a great day.
So again, that was the ILA president saying 61.5% is the number they're seeking. USMX, that's the port operators, they refused to comment on that number. And they said to refer to their statement from yesterday that the two exchange counteroffers, USMX issuing that statement before the deadline saying the two traded counteroffers, that they would offer wage increases of nearly 50% and also add to employer contributions when it came to healthcare and retirement, and also maintain current language when it came to automation and semi-automation, a very contentious issue when it comes to this negotiation. We also spoke to the White House. They didn't want to comment on the wage demands from the ILA, but they did note that the real wages for the East and Gulf Coast port workers have actually declined over the last 6 years. They also said they wanted to refer to their earlier statement from today, saying in part, President Biden and Vice President Harris are closely monitoring the strike at East Coast and Gulf Coast ports. The president has directed his team to convey his message directly to both sides, that they need to be at the table and negotiating in good faith, fairly and quickly. The White House also maintaining it would not use the Taft-Hartley Act to keep ports open and force negotiations. However, I've been speaking to many industry groups and their leaders. They want the Biden administration to take further action. Many of them saying across a number of industries, I'm talking spirits, auto parts, agricultural apparel, that a strike is going to be devastating for not only consumers, but for their businesses.
Speaking of the port strike, look at what Iliano just posted. He runs the Pounter merch store. He got this notification from his vendor. We only have enough material to make around 200 to 250 hats. This material color is on the back order until November 15th. However, due to the dock worker strike, that may delay it longer. The strikes are affecting the Palantir merch store. Like, that is insane, bro. That is just insane. Like, the implications of the amount of products and inventory and raw goods and all that stuff that goes through these docks or these ports are a lot. And it might end up delaying sales for the Palantir merch store, which, you know, that's like a joke, but I would imagine what it is for actual Palantir customers, actual clients, like imagine a hospital that needs certain goods, right? Like, it's not a good situation to be in. Not a good situation to be in. All right. Well, I'll be back tomorrow, 8:45 a.m. We'll see what happens with port strikes, what happens with the Iran-Israel conflict, and where the market continues to go. Again, it was a very interesting day in terms of how the market reacted in the beginning. Nike right here down about 3%, Palantir down about 2% on the day. Robinhood down about 0.5%, was down 4% in the morning, so about 22.21 after hours. NVDA right here 117, down about another 1/3%. Palantir down about 0.13, and then you got the S&P 500 down a little bit after hours, but for the day down about 1%, 568.62. Fun start to October. We'll see where this goes from there, and we'll see what else happens as we get through the rest of this month. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day. Thank you for joining the Market Open, Market Close, and I will see you guys tomorrow, 8:45 in the morning for the Market Open. Bye, everyone. Have a good one.